Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Wednesday morning college football, basketball, baseball roundtable. Got a great lineup today. Batting in the leadoff position, Dudley, Dawson, hawgville.net. Missed him last week. He was out with the flu. You know, there's other things other than the virus. Sometimes people get the flu. They get the sniffles. But we are glad to have him back. We love having Dudley on, talking Razorbacks, SEC, college football, basketball, baseball. Has a lot of common sense, is a great writer. You need to follow him. Hawgville, or as they say in the upper Midwest, Hawgville, we say that in the South, .net. Does great writing, 35 plus years as a what we call true grit journalist. He goes out and gets the story, doesn't try to get it first. He aims to get it right. You need to follow him always. Frank Duffy, hopefully going to be able to join us. Hey, Frank is heading down to Tampa. Frank Duffy, Mr. LSU Tiger, will join in as well, regular partner here on the show with us. Ben Troupe checks in with us from over in Savannah, ESPN Coastal, Gator All-American, 5 years in the NFL. Love to get his insight. Also wrote a great book, Unfinished, Uncommon, Unfinished. Find it on Amazon. Working on a new book right now. Top of hour number 2, Coach John Brady, former coach at Samford, LSU Final Four, Arkansas State. And he's going to join us, give his insight on basketball. Maybe somebody can explain to me how A&M shot 39 free throws and Auburn shot 12. I guess Auburn's just a lot more aggressive. Far be it from the referees to have any kind of agenda when they take to the courts. That's another story. But we'll also talk after that with ACC report, go over to Atlanta, talk with Kane Thomas. Tommy Kane checks in, NC State Wolfpack. We'll talk ACC basketball, college basketball, as we always do. Follow us on Twitter at @sidelines_live. We're here Monday through Saturday, 2 hours every day, www.sidelines.live. If you miss us, by the way, you can sync us in your car, boat, truck, SUV, in the duck blind, in an airplane, maybe even a balloon going across the country, delivering takeout. I don't know, but a lot of ways you can hear the show. Well, let's get down to business and talk to the man who grew up in Balch, Arkansas, a suburb of Newport, Arkansas, knows the Hogs, and again, is one of the better true grit journalists out there, Dudley Dawson. And Dudley, it's SEC basketball. The one thing I love is the consistency of the refs and the fairness. And it's always easy to win on the road. You always get the calls, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And that was the one thing about last night. You really didn't notice the refs too much with Arkansas and Kentucky. Now you did with your ball game, but you were watching, but you really did notice them. And Arkansas got a lot of credit for how it played offensively. I mean, you shoot 72% in the second half, 63% for the game overall, but it was defense to me. I mean, they got a lot of steals, 28 points off of 15 turnovers. And as John Calipari kept saying, his guys just didn't compete physically last night. And you don't really think of that when you think of Arkansas and this year's team being physical, but they certainly were last night.
Well, the thing about Arkansas, remember last year they got off to about a 1-3 start, and then they came back and won, 14 of the next 15 games. They were so hot. But again, they made it to the Elite Eight as they did the year before, knocked off the number 1 seed, Gonzaga. This Arkansas team, 6 brand new players on it, 11 new guys with the portal and everything, if I'm not mistaken. You lay out that case brilliantly. Is this team looking like they can make another run to the Elite Eight? Because there's no great team in college basketball. There's no, Goliath out there. And if there is, I'm betting on David, who was a 40-point underdog, because he won.
Yeah, and the thing about Coach Musselman's teams, and it's kind of irrefutable at this point now. The Arkansas has under Musselman is 18-1 in February. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And he gets his teams ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can't beat. How are you going to be better other than if you were 19-0, 18-1 in SEC games in February? That's as good as it gets.
And, the thing that, is even better, we keep hearing that Nick Smith is now practicing. Nobody has actually seen him do that, but they keep that close. And if he comes back Saturday, yeah, he may not be the player that they thought he was going to be at the first of the year, but that adds in another guy who can score at all three levels. A guy who's going to be a lottery pick. So it looks good for them right now. Certainly, they were left for dead once again in January by some of their fans, but here they all are again, live and kicking, and have put themselves with 5 straight league wins to do just what they've been doing the last few years, and that's peaking at the right time.
Yeah, and look, Dudley, we have this discussion on this show a lot. What is the state of college basketball today compared to 10, 20, 30 years ago? And we saw in the NBA last night, LeBron James broke Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time NBA scoring record, which was set in 1984. Now, I'm pretty good with math and gazindas. Okay, that's 39 years ago. And LeBron's team lost last night. And, look, Michael Jordan will always be the greatest basketball player ever, along with, to me, Kevin McHale, Wilt Chamberlain, Cornbread Maxwell. Think about Bob Cousy. Just because we didn't have color TV back then and had HD TV doesn't mean these guys weren't great players. I still think one of the greatest shooting guards I've ever seen in college was in 1980 or 81. You remember Darnell Valentine out of Kansas? The dude had thighs like Herschel Walker, and he averaged about 25, 28 points a game. The thing I noticed with Eric Musselman is he coaches, as my friend Raymond says, he coaches the dumb out of the players and gets them to play smart as the season goes along. Not every coach can do that. That's a talent. It's a gift from above. And I'm betting on the Hogs to close really strong.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to think that with the record that we mentioned, the 18-1. What I will say is, again, defensively, if you don't play defensively, he's not going to play you. He's back to where he's playing just 7 guys a game. He had 3 play 40 minutes a game just a week ago at South Carolina, or Saturday at South Carolina, and that's a game they probably would have lost in January, certainly in early January, but because they've gotten better at some different things, they were able to pull it out, and then you have the confidence to go in there last night and play. This is not a vintage Kentucky team, but I know people who Arkansas has now won 3 straight games against Kentucky, twice at Rupp Arena. They don't want to hear about not being vintage. They want to say, they got the win, and that's what they're supposed to do. That's what they do in February. And by the way, as far as LeBron, just I want to give him credit, a lot of respect for what he's done in points on the, getting points, and what he's done in his career. I think he's been great in terms of what he's done for youth education. I like him. I've made that clear from a long time ago, but has part to do with him being a Boston guy that we've gone up against. But, a great achievement. And I know one of the things that I took great pride in was watching Jalen Williams and Isaiah Joe, 2 Arkansas guys, out there on the floor, with him when he was breaking the record last night. And then, that's just a memory those young men will have forever.
They will. And I mean, he's a phenomenal player. And you looked at his family out there on the court with him. He's been playing 17 years. Is that correct?
Well, he started when he was 18, so 20 years.
He's 20 years?
Yeah, I first met him when he was in 8th grade, and he had an entourage already then. So,
well, you think about this. Look at some of the guys. LeBron James. He's lasted, and he you know what he does? He takes care of himself. Guy's a phenomenal athlete. He takes great care of himself. What's the longest career number of seasons that any NBA player has ever played? Any ideas?
Something I'll look up as we go along here. Don't know it off the top of my head, but there's not a, it's like running backs in the NFL. They are great for a while and then they run out of steam. It's certainly not something that LeBron's done. He's still having a great season. But you have to give him credit for keeping himself in a shape and position to be able to do that. As a Celtics fan, the fact that they lost that game, I smile at. But again, I give him a lot of credit. But he is the epitome of a guy who worked hard to get to be able to play this long and get that record.
Yeah, he came right out of high school. LeBron did up around Toledo, Akron. Cleveland, Akron. Yeah, Akron. Went to Notre Dame High School.
Yeah.
Okay. Catholic schools, man, they produce some basketball players. And I'm looking at the college basketball right now, just looking at the standings. You got Alabama at 10-0 for the third time in school history. They've been 10-0 in SEC basketball. A&M right behind them at 9-2. Tennessee at 8-2. Now Tennessee's going to play. They got another game coming up tonight. Auburn at 7-4. Kentucky 7-4. Florida 6-4. Missouri 6-5. Arkansas 6-5. And then Vanderbilt and Georgia 4-6, 4-7. Mississippi State 3-7. Ole Miss 2-9. LSU 1-9. South Carolina 1-10. So
you would think everybody that's 6-5 and above is probably going to finish out and get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah,
others are just kind of playing spoilers right now. But the SEC is a really good basketball league. Obviously, I think the Big 12 is the best one. They proved that.
I do too.
And whoever wins the Big 12 is going to have a number one seed. It is fun to watch college basketball when they are allowed to play and there's not a lot of foul calls, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Well, looking at I agree with you. That Big 12 SEC challenge, two ways people will look at it and say, well, doesn't really matter. It wasn't a conference game. Yes, it does. Because that's an opportunity in most of these cases to get a quad one win. And those are rare. You look at Auburn, they've got one. They better start getting some wins. And they've got, hell on the horizon. Saturday, ESPN game days going down there. Alabama's coming to town. Just because you're playing at home, you better be focused on playing on the court because that one could get out of hand. And I don't know. I will say the Big 12 is the best conference in America. What Oklahoma did to Alabama was very telling. Don't blow that game off. Now, Tennessee did beat Texas, and then they went on the road and lost at Florida and had one of the ugliest performances at home ever I can remember against Auburn. Who right now, if you had to pick your top four teams in the country, top four seeds, based on where we are today and where you think we're going to end up, lay them out there for us.
Well, I guess if you were to do that, Purdue, I think would still be right there. I do like Houston because of what they've done in the past and what they've done this year. But after those two, it's kind of a mesh there. I should mention Alabama obviously as well.
So you got Alabama, and you've got who else?
Alabama, Purdue, Houston, and maybe Tennessee. Tennessee plays a funky style, but also maybe another Big 12 team, probably another Big 12 team. The fact that it's hard to name just four teams tells you about the parity. There's so many teams each week that are losing in the top 25, and they're kind of just reshuffling themselves. I think older teams, you've got somebody like Creighton at the first of the year who lost one of their guys and spiraled out of control, and now they've got them all back together. They're playing really well. I think it's wide open this year, but I do like Purdue because of their big 7'4" center.
Purdue has taken over basketball in the state of Indiana, and I got a text here from Curtis Lowe from Marvell, Arkansas. finest picker to ever play the Blues. Curtis Lowe makes a great point. He said, I love to pick the small private Catholic universities in the NCAA tournament. I use as an example Exhibit A, St. Peter's win over Kentucky last year, and the fact that these guys have been together for 4 or 5 years. How big a factor do you think that is? Do you agree with what I say on that? That is from Curtis Lowe, Marvell, Arkansas, Phillips County, up on the river in the Delta.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
that.
And I think if you're looking for a team this year, I've watched St. Mary's beat Gonzaga a couple times now. I think that's an older team that's going to do really well in the SEC tournament. They're going to beat Gonzaga in their conference this year. So St. Mary's is the team that I see to be a kind of a spoiler this year. That's older, that plays a really disciplined game that doesn't beat themselves.
Yeah, and look, what I love when you break down college basketball, and you remember, like I remember growing up with these coaches that just fundamentals and free throws, and you couldn't leave the gym until you hit X number of free throws. And you're a purist in basketball. I can tell it when I'm talking to you. And we get a lot of people during the show that will text and send stuff on all the social media platforms. And I got to agree with the people, and I'm a big proponent of it, is these teams that have been together 4 or 5 years, you're going to do well. I mean, you get 68 teams in the tournament. A lot of those are automatic bids. So we're going to talk about this, Dudley, because we did it yesterday with several of our guests. Are you really getting the 68 best teams? There's no way with all those automatics, but I think the more teams we get, the greater the interest. We'll talk about it right after this. All right, Rob Browne back with Dudley, Dawson, hogville.net on this Wednesday college football, basketball, baseball roundtable, and talking a lot about, as we have increased, and Dudley, you're a historian of sports, which is very special, also a gifted writer, and you know how to take all this history, this complex minutia, and put it in the vernacular, pen to paper, like few people can. And I had a great quote from Buddy Martin, GatorbaitMedia.com. He and Franz Beard, big fans of yours. Franz was the one who told me all about you. That's why you're on this show, and thank God for that. But they were talking about a time when it was maybe Dan Jenkins or Furman Bisher, one of the great Southern sports writers back in the days of the old typewriters, and you were just do over and over and over. And he was trying to get a story to deadline out of the press box at a big game they'd been at. And he kept wadding it up and throwing it in the trash and falling on the floor. And one of the guys said, "Hell, man, there's more good writing on the floor in that trash can than I could ever come up with the rest of my life." But man, when you get it right, you know it, I mean, the Supreme Court's definition of pornography, whatever. We can't give you a textbook definition or in writing, but you'll know it when you see it. You know it when you see great writing. You know great basketball when you see great basketball. And you know that when the NCAA expanded the tournament from 16 to 32 to 48 to 64 to 68, it's done nothing but increase interest and make the opening Friday and Saturday, the Thursday and Friday of the tournament, typically around a couple of that was St. Patrick's Day. Not that there's any shenanigans going on around then, but I digress. But those are two of the most unproductive days of the year in America. Wait till we do it in football. But let's talk about basketball first?
Well, I'm okay with 68. I'm not, I've seen proposals to take it to 96 and all this. I think that's a little bit too much. At first when they started the Tuesday playing games, I was like, do they really need this? And now I look forward to being sit down to watch those games on Tuesday. Just like you were talking about, you know when there's good writing, you know when there's good basketball, you know when there's bad basketball too. And I saw an analysis piece yesterday that there's 30 teams that's definitely going to be in the tournament, or 38 teams that are definitely going to be in the tournament, and there are really 42 teams that are battling for the final 30 spots. Now the guy broke it down pretty good in terms of bid stealers and all that sort of thing, but there would not be 96 teams worthy of being an NCAA tournament. Now the NCAA may do that as a money grab, and all that sort of thing. But I think we need to stop at 68. But then again, as a guy who didn't want the designated hitter to come into Major League Baseball, and I'm kind of old school about a lot of things. This newfangled 3-pointer thing is in dunking.
Yeah. Hey, look, I want you to stay on with us if you can for the next segment with Ben Troupe. He was played for Steve Spurrier and Ron Zook at Florida, tight end, All-American, and then played 5 years in the NFL. Love having you on with folks like him, and we had you on with Coach Brady and whatever. If you can, we'd love you to do it because I love your insight, your take on what goes on in sports. Now, I'm with you. If we go to 96, that's too many, and you start just grabbing stuff out of thin air. Kind of like when my dad used to try to tutor me in math, him being an architect. I mean, this is just normal stuff to him, but trying to teach me algebra and trigonometry, boy, we had some knockdown dragouts in there. I mean, that was difficult. But I want to say in college football, we went from 2. Well, the old days, you woke up on New Year's Day that morning with a throbbing headache, probably. But if your team was in that top 5, you thought, you know what, there's a way we can win that national championship. It was exciting. And then we went to the BCS starting in 98. Now we're at the 4-team college football playoff. I'm all for going to 12. Now 13 will say they should have been put in. But if we were to have stayed at just 4, the way it is with the SEC dominating, we could have lost a huge portion of the American eyeballs for college football going forward. Agree or disagree?
Oh, I agree. Now, we've been talking about these 96 teams in the tournament. What I see if you expanded to 96 would be like we would have several December 17th bowl games. In terms of, now, certainly I would stop watching Law and Order and CSI and all that to watch that game, watch those games. But I'm not sure it's the quality that we need. There's a lot of things that have happened over the years that we didn't know we needed, and they've turned out. But I would be against this, but I would certainly watch it if it happened.
Well, it's like TV. We have hundreds of channels, and I'm trying to convince my 88 and 94-year-old parents to get rid of, their current cable provider and stream. And I said, it'll save you more than 50%. And they're like, it's like when you take somebody to a salad bar and they've got all those weird vegetables on there and they're like, they don't know what to do. That's where we are. And I think with college basketball, college football, you don't want to get too big. It still needs to be special to get an NCAA bid or a college football playoff bid. There's only been 14 schools make it to the college football playoff in the first 9 years out of 132 schools. What would it mean to Arkansas for them to get into the college football playoff? Because I don't ever say never, because that's a long time. Sam Pittman is recruiting very well. He's assembling a really good staff. And eventually there's going to be some transition at the top in the SEC. Why not the Hogs?
Well, now that they're going to have 12 teams, then I think obviously the availability of Arkansas to get in there increases. I'm proud of that Newport education I got, and I can do percentages there. So, But I mean, we've had people discuss this on our Hogville message board,
Yeah.
certainly on radio. There were some people who would sell their soul to get into the college football playoff because it means that you're one of the elite. Cincinnati, TCU, a couple teams these last couple of years that I don't think you would say are prime football elite schools, but now that they've been in there, every press guide, every social media post that's sent out, 2022 college football, semifinals, a playoff team, and all that. So I think it would be a big boost. This state prides itself on loving its Razorbacks, and if they get in there, they will talk about it just as they have for it would be 58 years now since the 1964 national championship. It would be the thing that would come along would be replace that, the 1994 basketball championship. Yeah, there's people around here who would sell their soul and maybe give up drinking.
Oh man, I tell you what, I pulled up a figure, and this was sent to me. And it is a powerful figure, and it's about national championships. Yeah, okay. This is total national championships of SEC schools. LSU is the top. This is all sports, men and women's, with 49. Georgia at 48, tied with Arkansas for 48. Florida's at 45, Kentucky at 40, Bama 28, Tennessee 23, Texas A&M 19, Auburn 14, South Carolina 11. Wow, let's see here. Vandy at 5, Ole Miss at 5, Missouri with 2, and Mississippi State with 1. So you know what? I don't care what the sport is. You win a national championship in any sport. That is powerful for your brand, isn't it?
Absolutely. And most of those, Arkansas have come via men's and women's track, cross country, indoor and outdoor, and things like that. But they still, John McDonnell was so successful at the track program that they had national championship trophies sitting around his office out in the foyer. And they finally got some cases built and put them inside there. But it was so funny. You'd go over to interview him and you'd have to sidestep the 1984, NCAA cross country championship trophy just to get in and sit down at his desk and do an interview.
Didn't John McDonnell win over 30 national championships coaching track and field at Arkansas?
Yeah, he did pretty good he was a shop teacher at Greenland High School when they hired him, and it turned out pretty well.
Yeah, I think when they hired him, Frank Broyles was the football coach, and he said, I think he was Irish. He was like, Coach Broyles, would you mind if I brought some of my boys over here to help your footballers to get in better shape so they won't be so winded in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, and he certainly did bring some of his guys from his home country, and that started quite the pipeline, as they said. I'm glad I didn't have a spell check back then. It would have gone nuts with O'Hallion and O'Shaughnessy and all those.
Yes, I've been in the countryside of Ireland, and you should see these road signs. They're ginormous, and they're about 25 or 30 letters long. It's Gaelic, that, and the Welsh. Dudley, stay on with us right now. I love having you on. Positive karma. Every time I cross that bridge over into Arkansas, I think about what my friend Chris Perkins says, whose son Jack just graduated from Arkansas. He says, Bobby, one state, one team. Ain't nothing like it nowhere. I'll tell you, there ain't nothing like this guy. Stay on with us, Dudley. Ben Troupe, Gator All-American, a 6'4", 243-pound sophomore from Swainsboro, Georgia, makes the catch, and the Gators now in position to win. As Mick Hubert, the voice of the Gators, would say, "Oh my, Troupe with the touchdown, Gators!" Ben, how are you? Well, hey, Dudley, by the way, he has the greatest collection of hats in the history of hats.
I like his a little bit. I like my Savannah Bananas, but I like his a little bit better. I have over 50 hats, but they're all baseball hats. Very, very few nice brims like he had.
Yes. And I'm just living in the spirit of my grandfather. He didn't make it to this level. He was more or less My grandfather's favorite outfit: white shirt, white pants, white shoes, white hat. Don't touch him. And all he doing is leaving his house, going outside, sitting down in his porch that's covered. But to him, he was cleaner than the Board of Health. If he got on all white, you couldn't tell him nothing. But Rob, man, it's always good being on with you, sir.
Hey, absolutely. Dudley's with hogville.net. And I said, stay on here with Ben Troupe. And Ben's on the Buddy Martin Show, which is 9 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Thursday, with Franz Beard and Buddy Martin, GatorVetMedia.com, and also does a daily show, ESPN Coastal, over in Savannah, from small town. Now, Dudley's from Newport, Arkansas. Ben covers the Hogs for hogville.net. Newport's town of about 8,000. Got a Sonic. It's a cool town over there. You can see the mountains from where he is. We're talking college football, college basketball, where we are in sports and all. I want to switch this conversation. Dudley, this is going to be fun with Ben, talking about the Super Bowl. Now, tell him your 3 favorite teams in the professional sports, and Ben will counter this.
Dallas Cowboys, St. Louis Cardinals, and Boston Celtics. Few championships in between the 3 of them.
There you go.
Unfortunately for me, I mean, I got drafted by the Titans, played for the Bucks and the Raiders, but a Georgia boy. So unfortunately for me, I get the Hawks, I get the Braves, and I get the Falcons. So most of the year, I'm seeing my therapist, and then when baseball season come around, I can talk trash.
Hey, listen. I grew up a Cowboys fan, and Ben and Dudley, y'all know this. They were so there's nothing like them. I mean, they had what, a 25 or 30 year losing streak on the road in playoff games, and they got it this year at Tampa Bay. Why is it so hard to maintain, the really high standard like some colleges can do, and even the great colleges go in these down cycles? And I'll reference Southern Cal after Charles White and the great teams in the 70s and early 80s, from 1982 to 2002, 20-year span, they only had one 10-plus win season in 20 years. But why is it so hard in the NFL? I'm going to get your thoughts, because we're going to talk about this Super Bowl coming up Sunday on the TV.
I mean, I think the thing about the NFL that's different than anything else, I mean, it's such talent based, so much so it don't take but 1 or 2 players to just change the whole dynamic, right? We're talking about Kansas City like they got this long, illustrious tradition. No, Kansas City was really, really good with football when NFL first became what it became. It was them, and obviously it was, Vince Lombardi, Green Bay. But the thing about it is you throw a Pat Mahomes in there, right? And all of a sudden, people I say, listen, sir, the easy way to know if you was a Kansas City fan, let me smell that jersey. That jersey's fresh out the pack. You ain't rooting for no Kansas. Give me them jerseys that's ripped up, torn up. And the thing about the NFL is this: you need 3 things to win. You got to have a coach, you got to have a quarterback, and you got to have a coach. If you missing any one of those, you're not going to win. That's why the great teams remain the great team. You're going to add a couple of teams, going to have a good run, but I know people say, well, what about Philly and Jalen Hurts? I said, listen, man, Jalen Hurts, he's won everywhere he's been. Yeah. Alabama, high school, Oklahoma. So he knows what it is to take a big. It don't get bigger at college than Oklahoma. When you talk about branding, so and nothing away from the Georgia boys, the creme de la creme is still in Tuscaloosa. It don't matter, because if you can beat them, you can beat anybody. So I think the thing about the NFL is quarterbacks, coaches, and culture. Because if you got all 3, that's why Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. That's why Pittsburgh has only had 3 head coaches. I mean, Houston Texans, they on their 3rd coach in 3 years. Bad teams make bad decisions. Great teams make great decisions. And it starts with the coach, starts with the culture. But if you ain't got a quarterback, you're going to throw for a bunch of yards, Justin Herbert, but you ain't gonna go to the big dance. Yeah,
and I'll speak on the Cowboys. I would say personnel decisions, ego up top, and trying to get the star players, the players that can bring you apparel instead of the ones that maybe mesh better on the field.
Ben?
I believe that the Dallas Cowboys, in my opinion, have the biggest unrealistic expectation before the season even starts, because everybody knows them. They're the biggest brand in football, might be the biggest brand in sports, but we just expect it to happen because Jerry Jones, he's the only owner that does interviews more than the players. He wants to be known that I'm the one that doing it. That's why my son is the president, right? Stephen Jones don't do nothing besides sit next to his dad and just, stroke his ego. Listen, I grew up watching Emmitt Smith and, Michael Irvin and Troy Aikman. Those teams were incredible. The problem is the 90s, we're a long way. People in the 90s got kids now. That's how long it's been since the Dallas. And the thing is, I will say this though. I have to deal with two fans that I just can't get rid of. Tennessee Vols fans and Dallas Cowboy fans. They are Dallas Cowboy fans, no matter what. They're going to do it next year. I don't care what happens. Next year, it's going to be the year. But if I ever want to take
hold that thought, because this is a great discussion, because hope springs eternal. I've heard it before. We're going to be right back. Ben Troupe, Dudley, Dawson on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Troupe, let's just carry on and pick up where we were before the break, because as Otter said, or whatever, during the movie Animal House, when Belushi was like, was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? He said, Germans? He goes, forget it. He's on a roll. You were on a roll before that break. Let's keep rolling.
No, I'm just saying, the Dallas Cowboys, in my opinion, are the most dedicated, irrational. I don't care how you feel about us. There's a guy. I don't know who he is. Every time Dallas wins the game, he got the song "We Them Boys." He's singing it though. Yeah, he sings it. Black guy. And what I can appreciate is this. You know how many friends I had growing up didn't know was Dallas Cowboy fans? We done had dinners together. We done broke bread together. And all of a sudden I see him on Instagram with a Dallas. I said, traitor, y'all Dallas Cowboys. And mind you, what I can appreciate it is you got the most probably like noticeable and a famous owner in sports. You can't get more famous than Jerry Jones, the star. All I know is this. I don't know what it's going to take to get the economy right and get us some tax breaks. But if Dallas win, the world going to change, baby. Dallas win the Super Bowl, everything changes, Rob. Dudley, hey, listen, so if that's what it takes, and do I root against Dallas? No. But is it easy to root against them? Absolutely. And it ain't the team. It's the fans. Or maybe it's the fans I'm hanging around here in Georgia. We got so many Dallas Cowboy fans in the state of Georgia. Because, that's what Georgia does. They only root for the Bulldogs during college football season. They root for Duke during college basketball season. And they root for the Dallas Cowboys until they lose in the playoffs. That's how they do in my great state.
Well, I am a very realistic Dallas Cowboy fan. I don't know that there's a lot of us. But, I know going into the season we're not going to win the Super Bowl. If it ever happens, that'd be great. I remember when it happened when I was 30 and 31. And now I'm about to turn 60. But, it's a fun diversion on Sunday because sometimes you find out different ways to lose football games that you didn't know existed.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? This discussion, Ben, do you know Emmitt Smith, Ben?
I've met him before. I met Emmitt Smith my senior year for our spring game. They retired his number 22, and he was out there on the field. And they didn't tell us. He standing like 2 or 3 feet from me. But I wish I knew Emmitt Smith, man. But I have met him before though.
Yeah, I remember standing next to him when I was in college at the Auburn, Florida game in 1987. He was a freshman from Pensacola, Escambia County High School, and we all thought he was coming to Auburn. Then he went home after his recruiting visit, and I think he had told Auburn he was coming, but there was a different opinion back when he got to Pensacola. He went to Florida, obviously. But that's one of my favorite players of all time. Just tough as nails. And Dudley, you remember Emmitt Smith and guys like him. Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith. There's just so many great players on that Cowboy team that just keep going on. But you're right. Jerry Jones as an owner overshadows them all. I still, to this day, Dudley, will never understand why he got rid of Jimmy Johnson as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I remember when Jerry Jones came to the Touchdown Club of Memphis in October of 94, and he was asked that question, why did you get rid of Jimmy Johnson? And his answer was something along, I was standing right there, and he said, nobody in this organization is bigger than me. I'm the owner. And I think that's what it was. I think he didn't want, Jimmy Johnson to be bigger than him. Dudley, would you agree? And then I want to get your thoughts on that, Ben.
Absolutely. And Barry Switzer came in and took Jimmy's players and mindset, and they continued to win. And then it went away. It has been away for a long time. I have kids that 33-year-old kid that didn't get to see the Cowboys, win a championship. So it is what it is. The man has done wonders for the University of Arkansas athletic program, but not for my NFL team in the last 30 years.
Yeah, and it's not nothing against Jerry Jones. It's just I think you got to let the coach do his job. And I heard it said by I read a quote that was given to a friend of mine when he started a business in Atlanta 23 years ago by Mr. Woodruff, the Coca-Cola family there in Atlanta. And he told him, he said, son, you'll have all the success you could ever dream of in this world, as long as you don't mind who gets the credit. Ben, being a tight end, you sometimes, hey, it's a huge, sandwich. We all got to take a bite, but you played your role. You paid your due. You hung in there and you fought. You never quit. You didn't have a pout face spreading the dreary wearies all over the place. And when your time came, your number was called at Florida, you stepped up, and what happened from there?
I thank God for it every day. Every time people get to talking about what I did in my career, I say, well, it just depends on what you mean by a career. It took me 3 years to understand, what it takes. My coaches always tell me, I said, listen, man, you can put ego and pride aside. You got a shot to be as good as you want to be. Even going back to a guy like Jerry Jones. People make so many jokes about him. They'll say, hey, man, what's bigger than Jerry Jones' ego? They're like, nothing. Like nothing is bigger than that. And I think the thing is, doesn't he know he's going to get the credit if they win? The first thing they're going to do is hand the Lombardi Trophy off. They're going to talk to the head coach. They're going to talk to the MVP. They're going to talk to the owner, right? And you're the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. Like, what else do you need? What else do you want? I'm serious. It's almost like somebody goes, hey, man, you own the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, but what? Like, what else do you want? So, hey, at the end of the day, I respect Jerry Jones. Like I said, I heard that Dallas Cowboy culture is serious, but they're going to be known for culture. They ain't going to be known for winning championships. And it's not because they don't got the players. You got Michael Parsons, you got Dak, you got Zeke, you got CD. You got all these guys, and you watching the Eagles. And you say to yourself, so, hey, that's why, listen, this is why I do media. That's why I'm not in the front office. I don't want to be responsible for picking no players, coaching no players. I just talk trash from the sidelines as we on with you, Rob. And then, and then when they lose, because I don't know why when Dallas lose, it's like when Alabama loses. Everybody want to pounce on them. I don't know why it's like that, but I think that's just to get back at Jerry Jones. I think it's less to do about the players.
I'll tell you a little known secret that I think is one of the biggest reasons they hadn't won is because he signed a contract with Miller Lite instead of Bud Light. Every time I go to that stadium as a fan, I have to step down a notch and drink that Miller Lite.
What, Sam Pittman, Coach, you just won the national championship, 15-0 for the Razorbacks. What are you going to do to celebrate? Well, I think I'm going to go back home and have me a cold beer.
That man won't wait to go home. I don't know if you've seen the photo of him when he played at Pittsburgh State when he was a guerrilla player. He has over on the sidelines, he has a beer before the game's over with. That's
I
a good
love it.
right there.
Hey, Dudley and Ben, as a historian, history, traditions, and heroes of college football, I've got a picture of Shug Jordan in the 1950s coaching at Auburn, kneeling down on the sidelines wearing a cutoff. Back then it was API, Alabama Polytechnic Institute. It's always been Auburn, but API sweatshirt during the Auburn-Georgia game, and he's smoking a cigarette on the sidelines, and he's wearing his combat boots he wore in World War II when he fought in North Africa, Sicily, D-Day, and Okinawa. You think that guy got rattled by anything? I mean, God bless. I love that. I mean, both of y'all are incredible historians with incredible recall. And Ben, you ever want a great guest on your show talking about Arkansas to spread the word? Dudley's hogville.net. Franz Beard told me about him. You know, your compadre on GatorBet. We have Franz was on with us Monday. He and Frank Duffy, perhaps the two most interesting men in the world, like that old beer commercial for Dos Equis. But man, I love going back into this. And as I grew up a Cowboys fan. You know what turned my mother got so mad when they fired Tom Landry, because her two favorite coaches growing up were Tom Landry and Dick Vermeil. She loved them. And I got a football in 1971, Dudley and Ben, autographed by everybody on that Cowboys team. Roger Staubach, Walt Garrison, Dwayne Thomas, Bob Lilly, Bob Harris, backup quarterback Craig Morton, and Tom Landry. A football with all their autographs, 47 black and white pictures with all their autographs. And you know what I did with that football? I played football in the street with it, and I can't find it. What do you think it'd be worth today, Ben?
Oh my God! Listen, hey man, listen. This is ask somebody for a blank check. You just write the number in. I mean, because that's the thing we don't understand about memorabilia. We don't understand about what's. I had some when I played against Deion Sanders his last year in the NFL when he was with the Ravens, and I got his game worn shoes that he signed for me, and I gave it to my best friend BJ because he's a Deion Sanders fan. I got Steve McNair's visor when he I took his visor out of his locker when he was in the Pro Bowl. I mean, I had Keith Bullet cleats when he had 3 picks on Monday night against Drew Brees. I mean, we never know these things are gonna. You just hope that something that of yours. I don't care if somebody get like being, hey, listen, man, some gloves you had went for $20. Hey, man, you got to steal for them things. I'm trying to tell you.
Well, when
Rob, as far as Arkansas knows, it has the basketball that Charles Valentine shot to beat Michael Jordan in North Carolina, as far as they know.
Wow, I'll tell you another one. When Chris Davis returned the kick 6 in the Iron Bowl, my sons Wilson and Max were in section 42, and that's right. I said, what'd y'all do about getting on the field? And they said, we didn't have a choice, Dad. They were let's see, at that time, Max was 13, Wilson was 15. They just ran on the field. And I've got a selfie Wilson took of him and Sammy Coates, who caught the pass from Nick Marshall to tie the game in regulation. Sammy Coates out of Leroy, Alabama, who could throw a mid-90s fastball as a baseball player. And also Wilson high-fived number 10 from Jackson Olin High School in Bessemer, Ladarius Owens, who was one of the lead blockers on that kick return. He high-fived him and has his Under Armour glove, and it's got a signature on it. And we have all of those items saved in a mayonnaise jar, stored away. But they're going to be worth something one day. And you think about these moments when you're there and all that hard work that goes into it, guys. Dudley, that's a cool story. In Pine Bluff on a Sunday afternoon, Hogs over the Tar Heels. And yes, that basketball is in the trophy case at Arkansas. As far as we know, nothing to see here. Please keep moving along. I want to hear some more stories about, and Ben, I hope you've got all this stuff stored properly. I mean, that thing, that's some valuable stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. See, I've never been a memorabilia type. I've never been the type. My brother was a big time trading card guy when we was growing up. But what's crazy is somebody else will go, "You got what?" You'll tell them something and say, "You got what with what?" And you got to act like you know what it's. Oh yeah, it's stored away. You hoping to God you ain't. That's the storage that when you was paying for it. I mean, hopefully I'm not watching this stuff on Storage Wars. But I mean, the new thing now is because people don't know. Hey, going to people, listen, I played against Jason Peters and Darren McFadden, right? And Cedric Cobb and Sean Andrews. So I know these dudes. So I'll knock on their door and say, listen, man, sweat on this a little bit, man, and act like you wore it. And I'm going to sign it and I'm going to put it on eBay and I'll give you a couple. Because that's what the new thing is now, selfies and all this stuff. But yeah, I got some Steve McNair memorabilia. I got some, see, if I would have played during the Tim Tebow time, I would have raided his locker and wouldn't have cared. Like, sorry. You ain't getting none of these cleats. I don't care how you feel. Put the mouthpiece in your mouth so I can get some of that Tebow Slava. I want some of that too, because the more the better. I really don't care at this point.
Damn, I love it. Dudley, jump back in here, man.
Well, it's interesting. Not all heroes wear capes, right? And it's certainly I will never forget the time my late mom called me and let me know, hey, there was a box of these baseball cards that was in storage, and I hope you don't mind. I threw them away. You did? What now? And I love her, but man, that was a retirement deal.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how many pieces of gum I had to chew to get all those?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, I tell you another one. I got a Pat Sullivan jersey, Heisman Trophy winner at Auburn in 1970. My parents had gone down to the Auburn LSU game. LSU won in the rain 17-9. Wallace Clark was stopped at the goal line by LSU linebacker, All-American Mike Anderson. Famous guy. He's now got a famous restaurant, one of the best in the country, Mike Anderson's in Baton Rouge. If you like eating food, Jimmy Ott will tell you about it. It's a bucket list restaurant. And in 2008, Pat Sullivan signed that to my son, to Max. Best wishes, Pat Sullivan. And his concern even then was he's not going to put it on eBay. And I'm like, no. And he would wear it to Auburn games when he was a little kid. And it still has a rip in the right sleeve. When I jumped headfirst into the holly bushes on the day after Thanksgiving in 1971, when Alabama beat Auburn 31-7, I was so distraught. But still got the rip in that thing, but I still have that jersey. But here's another wild one. Y'all remember, Dudley, I guarantee you do. Ben, you're probably too young. DX gas stations used to have these trading stamps, and you had every NFL team. You opened up the thing, and every time you bought gas at this place, you got X number of trading stamps. So you would try to fill in all 47 players with their stamps for every team in the NFL. At the time, there were 26 or 28 NFL teams. I mean, my parents went to DX gas station twice a day for years because I wanted to get, and I filled my album up. God, I wish I could find that one.
Yeah, I remember those days. That was the same days that we would go do that, and then we'd come back home and watch one of our 3 TV channels.
Ben, again, you're too young to remember. Ben's looking at us like we got horns coming out of our head.
Listen, at the end of the day, I mean, it's funny when you talk about these stories, and that's what makes it, right? What makes it is you talk about Franz Beard. You could give Franz Beard to say, oh man, yeah, he'll say 1985, it was raining, the game was delayed for 10 minutes. He could. What I appreciate about these stories, Rob, and Dudley, is that's what makes a sport. What makes a sport is what nobody saw. Hey man, right after the game, my story was finally got to go to a Braves game. There go David Justice. He was married to Holly Berry at the time. He's there in his Porsche. He's signing all these autographs. I chase him to the light. His window was down. I chased him to the light in Atlanta traffic. I said, David Justice, could you sign this? He said, sorry, little man, I'm in a hurry. Let his window up and took off. All I'm going to say is this. If I ever meet David Justice, I'm going to say, David, you was wrong. Now, true indeed, he was trying to get home to Holly Berry, so I understand that. But, hey, man.
Hold that thought.
She's still going to be there. She's still going to be there.
I want to hear the rest of this story after the break. We're going to be back with Dudley Dawson, Ben Troupe, Rob Browne on Sidelines.
one and done, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
On this edition of What Do You Got, Ben Troupe down in Savannah, ESPN Coastal, Gator All-American, NFL player 5 years, Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. This just came in from one of my fraternity brothers at Auburn, Ray Mooring from Huntsville, the smartest city in Alabama. Check this out, guys. I've got a football signed by Pat Sullivan, Bo Jackson, and Cam Newton is going to sign it this year. He's going to have all three of Auburn's Heisman Trophy winners signed on one football. Ray, I got to give you credit, man. As Ernest T. Bass would say on the Andy Griffith Show, especially when I'm dancing. That is pretty cool, Dudley. You know, you better put that in a glass case.
Yeah, absolutely. You better lock that thing away, or you better sell that thing. One of the two.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful stuff, man. Guys, you know what? I think Dudley, Ben, as a writer, when you start following Dudley, hogville.net, and he'll give you his Twitter feed, you get, there's so much going on in a game. And Ben, when you would talk to reporters after a game, did you ever fully understand, I guess, at the moment, what you were saying? Was it better to be slow and measured, or just let it all out, raw emotion, and trust that the writer, someone like Dudley Dawson, would make it work? Because there's a lot happening at the end of a game, and trying to capture that is an art.
It is, man. I don't know if I was measured. I know that when you started talking about the media, I understood that everybody had a job. I never took stuff serious. I could answer any question. I didn't look at it as they coming at me or they asking me stuff. And I learned how to kind of go back and forth, like have more of a conversation with the person asking me a question. And just because I didn't do the whole no, yes, or we could have did this better. I do my best. I ain't never going to call out a teammate. I'm not a good enough player to call out anybody. But I always enjoyed the media. This is why most of the people, they walk by that media room. You never go in it. You know there are interviews in there. You want to know what it's like to go in there. But the crazy thing about the media, doing media, is the questions come at you fast. It's like you got to listen slow because the questions coming in fast. But I've always appreciated the media. It was never ever about like I didn't do the whole take it personal. Because the thing about it is you see these people walking around sometimes. Like you may see them. And I learned to use it as a tool, even if I didn't know that's what I was doing. Because they don't do no media training. They'll say, hey, Ben, CBS. Hey, Ben, NBC. And they'll give you a hello. And they're already, you're on the show already. You got to act like you know what you're doing. But when you go in the big room and they sitting there, they go them big, gigantic cameras, and they go those. Now they just take their cell phone and just stick it on the podium. And they'll get everything you're saying. But I've always enjoyed it. I never looked at it as, and obviously I didn't know I was going to be in the media, so thank God I didn't do nothing crazy, because then I'm not getting no credentials. Sorry, Ben, we're out. What? So them SIDs and all those media, I've always enjoyed them, man. When people get mad at the media, like I'm like, come on, man, you're getting mad at a beat writer? Come on, man, we got to do better than that.
Yeah.
You know, people never got mad at me unless Arkansas was losing, and somehow it was my fault. But one of the toughest things that, you know, in my profession, and I've always appreciated everybody that took time to answer questions, was asking a coach or asking a player after a situation didn't go their way. You had to ask them the question to get their thoughts because you're the conduit to the audience. But you got to come up with a way other than saying, dude, you just dropped the ball and lost the game for your team. Tell me all about it. and, you know, I realize how tough it is to answer that, you know, at times. So, you know, I know Coach Brady will say the same thing. I'm sure he enjoyed the media sometimes, and other times after a loss, we're like, I'd rather not be with these guys, you know. Yeah. But it's just, you know, we all have our roles. Some of them play it well. I've asked some fabulous questions in my life, and I've asked some stupid ones. And I know as soon as it comes out of my mouth that it's a stupid one, and I want to take it back, but you can't.
Yeah, and some of the coaches, Coach John Brady, Macomb, Mississippi native, coached at Samford, took LSU to the Final Four, and also coached 8 years at Arkansas State. We got Ben Troupe, Florida Gator All-American with Steve Spurrier and Ron Zook, 5 years in the NFL, Dudley, Dawson, Hogville.net. Just having a discussion, and we've kind of gotten off. We've been talking Super Bowl, NFL, and also some of your coolest things you've ever done in sports, memorabilia that you have. And I can tell you, Coach, you know, in asking questions as a reporter, I remember when I was in college for the Auburn Plainsman, and I would ask a question to Coach Dye after a football game. He was, I mean, we all love him, but he was intimidating. I'll be honest, he was an intimidating man. He was kind of scary. I mean, because I asked him one time after an Auburn game in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, in 1987, Auburn had blocked a punt, and it kind of changed the momentum. And he had us all down there in the end zone by the goal post. And I said, Coach, how important was that blocked punt in Auburn getting the win? And he was so measured, he kind of turned around, looked at me and said, well, he said, we picked up on that center, kept raising his right leg every time something was going to happen, and we knew we could get the block. And he goes, yeah. He goes, that changed it. But he would just look at you with those eyes. And I can imagine some of the questions that you had, especially from some young reporters after games. But you've got such great credibility. And Frank Duffy said y'all had fun down in New Orleans, solving all the world's problems. And Frank was going to be on with us this morning, but he got down to Tampa, and he's helping clean up his son's place down there. And he's going to be back on with us Saturday. But love having all of y'all on here. So everybody stay on with Coach if you can. We're going to talk some college basketball, but talk about your experiences with the media, because you've been doing it a long time, and you're the color man on the LSU Basketball Network now.
Well, I'm on the dark side now. I'm on the media side now, so I get to see it from both sides. You know, that's one of the things I miss in coaching is the banter that occurred with officials. I used to enjoy that, and then the banter with the media. I kind of enjoyed that, and it's the responsibility of the coach, win or lose, to go meet the media. You know, you've got to do that. You take the good things with the bad, and you know, but I even in losing or winning the game, I didn't mind going to the media and answering intelligent questions and answering some that, you know, were not as intelligent as some others. But I enjoyed that. It's not something. It's not something that I dreaded, or not something that bothered me. It was part of the job, and to you benefit from that in a lot of ways. I mean, you know, how you handle that shows a lot of recruits and parents, you know, what kind of guy you are. And if you keep your composure and answer tough, difficult questions, I think it transcends to showing what you're about. So I always enjoyed that, and I was always careful. You know, I said some stupid things from time to time, but basically I enjoyed the media. I enjoy them now. I enjoy doing what I'm doing now. I've got to interview Matt McMahon after tough games. You know, we're on a 9 or 10 game losing streak, and that's not fun for him. But at least I understand that having coached, and I can have some better understanding than some guy asking a question that's never coached before. So it's been fun to do it, and I always enjoyed it.
Yeah, let's open up for questions. Ben, I know, having played it for Steve Spurrier and Ron Zook and played for different coaches in the NFL, you know what that's like. But Coach, I'll tell you one thing you said a couple of weeks ago on this show that was so powerful, because I said kids today say, well, coaches make all this money. And I said, well, but they pay their dues. And I said, what did you start out making? And you said, Rob, my first 3 years coaching high school basketball, I made $50,000 a year.
That's right. That's right.
Effective. You are a gifted individual that relates really, really, really well to people, and that's why you kicked ass as a coach.
Well, I don't know how to respond to that, but you know, all these guys that are making big money now, you know, I didn't have an opportunity to make $3 million a year like some of these guys do, but all these guys that started out, they didn't start at $3 million. You know, you trace all these successful coaches, they started out at the bottom and earned their way to make the money they're making because of what they accomplished.
Yeah.
And it'll be difficult for me to put my arms around giving somebody something when they haven't earned it or paid dues or whatever the case may be. But I just don't think that's the right approach. But Nick Saban, the highest paid football coach, whatever, his first job, he wasn't making $10 million.
Yeah.
He was successful, earned the right. Pro players, I mean, you know, they get paid better the more they perform. I mean, you know, so I don't know. That's the only thing about today's world that bothers me just a little bit is the money they pay up front before you've taken a snap or made a basket or got a rebound. And I think the message isn't quite what it needs to be.
Yeah. Ben?
No, I agree. I mean, I think when you talk about coaches, it's real similar to players. I just understand that I'm never ever gonna. Coaches know more about anything I've ever done, no matter what it is. Just because I'll never go to a coach and say, "Man, you jumping all down my throat, man. You can't do what I do." He said, "Man, you know." And I said, "Listen, man. I mean, Ron Zook told me. He said I've been coaching football since Moby Dick was a minnow. You don't know what you're talking about." And I think what happens is when it comes, like just like you said, Coach Brady, it's like you giving somebody something based on potential. Potential is a very, very dangerous thing. Everybody has it. Most of us will not meet. There are people that think that LeBron isn't the greatest scorer in basketball. Well, I've scored the most points. So how can I not be the greatest scorer? Well, he was all right. I just don't get it. And I'm on the media side too. You know, I mean, I got nephews telling me stuff like, "Hey, man, you think I can get $10 million when I go to college?" I go, "Boy, you fail in English. What are you talking about?" But that's just the world. That's the world we live in, and it becomes this thing to where, you know, coaches don't sit around. I said, listen, the only person gonna worry about the coach's money is Mrs. Coach. She's the only one cashing the checks. You don't got to worry about it. Like my mama, like my daddy say. I asked my dad. They said, "What do you do for a living, sir?" He says, "I'm a magician." He said, "I make magic happen." He said, "What's your wife do?" "She's a money magician. She makes money disappear." That's what she does. So I go make it. She makes it disappear, and it's been working for them for 45 years.
That's
so
good.
I just be telling them coaches, man, y'all live y'all life, man. We know that to become a head coach at any major college football, basketball, you definitely paid your dues because most people are going to be assistant coaches for life, which I still think is a great career.
That's good.
Yeah, I do. And Ben, look, Dudley, I know you've got to sign off. Tell people real quick, but before we go back to Coach Brady, how they can follow you, keep up with all the great work you do, and look forward to having you back on next week. The ECS House Industries Razorback Report brought to you by Chad House, the great folks in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, right in the heart of the Delta, about 33 miles south of the borough. That's Jonesboro, where you used to live, Coach.
Well, I don't know that town, but there's a lot of them in Arkansas I don't know, but I enjoy Jonesboro's cool though.
Yeah.
Hogville.net is the message board, and Dead Sports, DED Sports is the Twitter. Ben, you can come on there and see any kind of Cowboys, Cardinals, and Celtics things you need to, and see my face for radio, which I'm very proud of. You know, not many guys with face for radio marry supermodels, but I did.
Absolutely, Dudley. Thanks so much. One more in terms of famous things that we got. This just in from one of our listeners, Wesley Duncan, good friend of mine, lives in Fort Lauderdale. Zoom in on this baseball and look at this signature, and I just did. It's signed by Ted Williams. My father got this for me when I was a little kid, and yes, like you, Rob, I played baseball with it in the street, but you can still see the Ted Williams signature. I recommend you keep that in a hermetically sealed, barium-pressured vault. But Dudley, thank you so much for being on with us. as they say in the upper Midwest, go HAWGs, as we say down south. How about them hogs?
All right, man. I always enjoy it.
All right, same here. Coach, I like what Ben just said because it's so real. And I know the coaches that I had growing up, Little League baseball, high school, whatever. And I went to Christian Brothers High School. We had a coach, Billy Canale, from the Canale family. And there's nothing like it. I think of the Browner family out of Atlanta. I think of the Canales, the tough, just relentless, who never let you give up. And you develop this mindset of, I'm going to find excuses to win. And man, talk about some of your best memories of when things weren't going necessarily well and how you drew on your childhood, your upbringing, and the most influential people in your life. Because every time you're on here, we take a lot of notes, and this is no different.
Well, that's a broad question you just laid on me there.
It's a lot to unpack.
Well, this is what I've always thought when I've watched players play, or even if I reflect on myself. I wasn't a great player, but I tried to play the best I possibly could with the gift I've been given. I didn't judge myself what other guys were doing. I had to judge myself on what talents I was given. And if it's a gift, you owe something back to fulfill that gift. But I think what makes players, separates great players from good players, is the competitive nature that drives them. If you don't possess a competitive nature, whether you're an athlete or whether you're in business or whether you want to win something every day, I always had the approach with the teams that I coach. We wanted to win something every single day and be better that day than we were yesterday. I tried not to let what happened yesterday or the day before affect our performance for the next game. So I appeal to their competitive nature each day. We tried to get better every day. And the thought process was, let's win something today. Because if you don't win, the war is winning a championship. That's the war. But if you don't win the little battles every single day, you have no chance to win the war. And so that's how I approach coaching. Every day we were trying to win some battles. And then if we won enough of those, eventually we could be in a position to maybe win the war, which is the championship.
Coach, Tommy Kane's on with us right now. Tommy is, you had guys like him on your teams at Samford and LSU and Arkansas State. Tommy grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, NC State Wolfpack fanatic for life. Okay. Walked on at North Carolina State, was a manager and got a chance to play. And it means so much to him because of the course that he took. And, I love getting here I am. I've got 3 college athletes, a Final Four coach. This is unbelievable. And y'all are all in the media. I'm in the media for what that's worth. Been doing it a long time. Also have a career on top of this in wealth management. But the one thing I notice is you better surround yourself, Coach. I love what you just said. Every day you've got to find something that you can say, look what I did. And I remember that great speech by Admiral McCraven to the University of Texas commencement exercise, May of 2014. He said, the first thing in the morning, accomplish a simple task. Make your bed. No matter how your day goes, when you get home after rolling around in the sand as a Navy SEAL in BUDS training, cold, wet, miserable, tired, hungry, you come home to a nice, comfortable bed that is made. We'll talk more with these great minds on Sidelines after this quick commercial break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House Equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Kane, Ben Troupe, Coach John Brady, Rob Browne here with you on this Sidelines Wednesday roundtable, talking college football, basketball, baseball, great memories, things, memorabilia that you might have picked up along the way and you still have. But Tommy Kane jumping here with Coach John Brady. I know Tommy covers ACC basketball for us, done a lot of work on the ACC network, ACC road trip, Fox Sports, and Coach jumping here with Ben Troupe and Coach John Brady.
Yeah, Coach, it's nice to meet you. We actually have a mutual friend. Scott Alexander is a good buddy of mine.
I've done a lot of stuff with Scott. He's a good friend. We do stuff. I've been on his TV show, and we used to have a radio show, and I've known him a long time, and we do a lot of things socially together as well.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He and I used to work together in Turner Sports way back in the day when we were both right out of college, and so we used to play little hoops together too some. But yeah, it's nice to meet you on here for sure. And Ben, good to see you as always, my friend.
Yes, sir. Always good to see you.
Yeah.
I want to talk about college basketball from your perspective, Tommy, and we're going to get into it. ACC basketball, SEC basketball, Big 12 basketball. I love college basketball. Hell, I love anything where they keep score because that's the accountability factor. But Tommy, what's your take on where the ACC is? And I want to get Coach and Ben's take on the transition of, well, obviously last year Hubert Davis had a great first year, but what's going on at Duke and some of the other schools in the ACC, I still think top to bottom, historically, the ACC is it. It's the tip of the spear for college basketball.
Well, if you're going to talk about history, I think that you find hard time anybody arguing that with you. I mean, if you from top to bottom over the years and over the decades, but this year's different. The two generals stepped down, and Coach K and Roy Williams have stepped away from the game. And I mean, obviously their greatness as coaches shows right away. I mean, Hubert, yes, had a good year last year at the end, made a nice run, but I mean, this year, reality is kind of setting in. It's not Coach K and Roy Williams there anymore. And Duke is I mean, they won the game versus Chapel Hill this past weekend, but both of those guys are in the middle of the pack, and they're basically, I mean, if they don't play really well down at the end of the road here, especially Chapel Hill, they might not even be making the dance, right? I mean, there's a chance of that. And let me ask you guys this. Here's a question for you. They were preseason ranked #1 in the country. When's the last time a team that was preseason ranked #1 in the country has a chance of maybe not making the tournament? I mean, that's crazy. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of shakeup going up there in Chapel Hill. We'll see what happens as the season ends up. Like, obviously, they've got the talent that they need to make the dance and to do well. But right now, they're not playing so hot. And the ACC top to bottom. I mean, if you look at the standings right now, you would think maybe you were looking at the football standings, right? I mean, you really would. You got Clemson on top of the standings in basketball, and then you got Pitt right behind them, and then Virginia's there. Is still hanging in there. They're all tied in for first place now after Pitt won last night. But you got to give a lot of credit to Pitt and Coach Capel, what he's done there. I mean, last year, guys, Pitt won 11 games, 11, and now they're tied for their 10-3 in the conference. So a lot of shakeup in the ACC, which makes sports great, right? If it was the same teams year after year after year, we'd get kind of bored with it, right? So,
yeah, Coach, I'll get your take on that, and I'm interested.
Well, I think it's tough to follow a legend. I followed Dale Browne at LSU, and that wasn't the easiest thing to do. But the toughest challenge a coach has is unmet expectations. And when the expectation level is so high and you don't meet those expectations, that's tough for a coach to manage during the course of a year, because especially now with all the noise and distractions that come your way, like the young man expressing his feelings at South Carolina because he's not getting the ball, and he puts it out on social media. I mean, all of those things take place, and to manage that as a coach when your expectation level is not being met is difficult. But I think the biggest challenge is both those guys at Duke and Carolina to follow the legends that they're following is tough to do. I mean, and there'll be some growing pains there. Hopefully they can recruit their way out of it. And then once they get the talent, coach their way to where the expectation level is for both programs.
Yeah. Yeah. Ben, you played for a legend, Steve Spurrier, and then played for his successor, Ron Zook. What was that like? I mean, that's got to be different.
And Ron Zook know what I mean by this, man. I mean, look, you went from first class to coach, man. You was flying high, right? And then you realize, though, just like Coach Brady said, it's not that Ron Zook wasn't a good coach. Sometimes replacing the man is always hard because you see what Spurrier ended up, right, dominating the SEC. But the one thing Coach Spurrier, left on me is he goes, being the reality of the situation is perception is all we have. The reality is in this building. We know what it is. But what they say about us, that's what we are. And it was a hard pill to swallow, but he was being honest. The thing about Ron Zook, he wanted the outside world to accept the reality. They was You at the University of Florida, I don't care. You talk about Danny Warfel and Steve Spurrier and Tim, even though I was there before Tim Tebow, you go to certain brands, it's the brand. I don't care what you don't have. I don't care about injuries. I don't care. What a school what a mid-major get, you don't get that. You don't get it at all because you don't lack anything. You got the best coaches, best players, best resources, best alumni. Why you losing? Oh, well, our quarterback got hurt. So where the backup? Well, he got hurt. And I've seen it. And that's the biggest thing I think a lot of these coaches have to deal with now. These players come in 4-star, 5-star, McDonald's All-American, and they can't develop. And now the coach gets blamed because I got a player who he's really, really tall. He can jump high. He can't box out. He can't shoot free throws. He can't. It's the littlest things that win games, and I think that's one of the biggest things that really hurts players now is. I said, listen, man, you need to listen to your coach. You need to stop listening to your parents, man. You your child, you your parents' baby. That man over there, that woman over there, they got to give you tough love. So, like I say, man, I wore 3 shoes a lot when I was in college runs, 2 on my feet and 1 up my you know what, but it helped me because I needed it. He could tell me that. He was being, your mama didn't stick her foot up your behind enough. So I'm going to make up for the lost years. And while I didn't like it, I do not do what I do. Listen, Ron Zook was the coach I needed. Steve Spurrier was the coach I chose. And I wouldn't have my career any other way.
I can't say it any better, guys. Tommy, coach.
Yeah, we've talked about this on the show before, Rob. It's just the generation we're living in now where everybody's, is kind of spoon-fed and wants all the instant fame and glory. And they got too many people in their ear and social media and everything else, telling them what they should and shouldn't do. And they should be getting the ball more. Or they should be going to this school and doing whatever. As opposed to the generation that just pulled up the bootstraps and worked hard. That's what's missing in college sports these days. And we talk about it all the time, but the NILs and the transfer portals and all that stuff, it's not helping anything. We got to figure out to put some guardrails on it. We got to figure out to slow this thing down because, we've talked about this before too, but these college coaches are, programs like Pitt can go from winning 11 games to being, tied for the first place in the ACC because of a lot of transfer portal guys and older guys or whatever. That's great and wonderful, but then they're going to be gone in a year or two. And you got to do it again. And their coaches are now having to recruit their own players just to stay, right? Yeah. You got to recruit these kids from high school to try to come, but then you got to recruit them for 2 or 3 years just to make them stay. And it just doesn't teach loyalty. It doesn't teach work ethic. It doesn't teach, that grind that we are all going to need in life when it comes to, because look, sports aren't going to last forever. We know that. Most than 90% of these guys aren't going to play professionally and get paid. So you got to have that work ethic instilled in you in order to make it through life. And that's what's missing. I think there's a big gap there.
Yeah. Coach, I'm going to throw a scenario to you. Let's say you're coaching right now with NIL and the portal and all that stuff. And you got a kid that he's a good player, but he's not going to make it in the NBA. He may think he is, but he gives you 11 minutes a game, averages about 5 points, a couple of rebounds, but he never misses practice. He's always there early. He's got a great attitude. and he'll do whatever it takes to win, WIN, whatever is necessary. And let's say he's thinking about transferring, but he's in the accounting program or finance program. And let's say you're coaching at LSU and he's thinking about leaving. Let's say he's from Leesville, Louisiana, or Opelousas or Thibodaux. And he's thinking about transferring to Oregon State. What would you tell him about, hey man, where are you from? Take that one over. What would you tell him?
Coach, did you take notes on that so you can remember all that? That was a lot of information.
I've drank too much coffee this morning.
You lost me after the second.
I need to get a pen and a paper out when he's asking me questions. With the scenario you described, I would hope with a mom and dad living in Louisiana, and he's not a great player, that what he could contribute to the LSU basketball program, and then he gets a degree from LSU in the major of his choice. What better way to prelude a career in Louisiana by staying at home and playing at LSU? I don't know where he's going to live after he finishes college, but if he better live in Oregon, because if he leaves LSU, he's not coming back to Louisiana and get a break in terms of getting jobs. That's the loyalty of that LSU fan base.
Yeah.
So, the year we went to the Final Four, and we beat Krzyzewski on the way. He was number one in the country, and we beat them with J.J. Redick. We went to the Final Four. 6 of our first 7 players were from Louisiana.
Wow.
And we sold them on the fact that they got to wear that purple and gold. They grew up in the state, and they had a little extra pride about what they were doing because it was the state they grew up in.
Yeah.
And they had LSU across their chest. They wore that purple and gold, and that was the camaraderie on that team and the belief in one another and how they got along helped us sustain some winning throughout that season and won some close games because of that. So that would be my pitch. If you're from Louisiana, mom and dad, you're contributing to the LSU program, why wouldn't you stay here when you think about life after basketball?
That's a great point, Coach. That's a great point. Yeah.
And Ben, from being from Swainsboro, Georgia, and a lot of Georgia kids play at Florida. So you've got those connections in Florida, but looks like you're doing very well in Georgia because you got a great family. You've got strong roots, but I think you can see the other side of it.
I can. I think Coach make a great point. Sometimes, we don't, when you're going through the recruiting process and you're going to certain schools, I picked the school because of the coach. The coach came first and the institution came second. And I think that's what a lot of players do. But I look at it like this. I can't live with the what if. So that's my thing is like, look, I'd rather stick with who I chose and live with the result, because people think I'm gonna go somewhere else. There ain't no guarantee on the team I'm on. So why would I go to another team that I got to learn the coach, learn the players, learn the coach? No, when Ron Zook first saw me, we both thought the same thing. Who the hell is this? I'm looking at him, he's looking at me. I ain't know who he was, he ain't know who I was. But Steve Spurrier gave me 2 years under him. So Steve Spurrier taught me work ethic, not even winning and losing. Taught me work ethic. So I said, listen, man, either me and this dude gonna have it out, because he told me this. He said, being true, this is my dream job. Some of y'all are part of the nightmare. I will get rid of y'all. Because coaching in Florida, that's a resume builder like no other. So I stuck it out. People saying, why ain't you ever transfer? Man, I play tight end, man. What's wrong with y'all, man? I don't play quarterback. I don't gotta, and plus, I wanted to do it with the guys I came in with. It's just something about that. And like I say all the time, Rob, if I leave Florida and don't work out, I'm gonna become a professional liar. I'm gonna get real good at lying. It's everybody's fault but mine. Coaches didn't like me. Stuff that players say when things don't go our way. I thank God it did work out, but if I become an All-American or not, man, I'm not leaving, man. What kind of
no. Here we go.
Crazy.
Ben, we lost you there for just a second. Must have been a balloon coming across the country, knocked you off or something. I don't know that balloon. Hey, it's a plane. It's a balloon. Anyway.
Don't even go down that path, man. They give me on a soapbox and off.
Be careful.
But Ben,
be careful.
Yeah, Ben, I love what you just said because it's so true. And Coach, that's going out. Already pull that off today. That will go out all over because That's what I wanted to hear a coach say that. And Tommy, look at you and your story, walk on and tell coach the story of how you got to play your first game. This is incredible. You cannot make this stuff up, coach. This is why we love sports and we love the stories of just perseverance.
Well, I'll try to summarize as quick as I can for you, Coach. But I grew up in Wilmington and was a big NC State fan since I was 5 years old. Went to Jim Valvano basketball camp forever, all the way through high school. And I got some small letters to play some small college ball around the state, but just decided to go to NC State and got my foot in the door as a manager for Coach Valvano. Worked for him for a year, and then Les Robinson came on board, and they had open tryouts for the whole school. And I tried out because they needed to fill some roster spots. I tried out of like 300 kids, made it down in the final 10, but I didn't make it. I was only a sophomore at the time, and they just kept me on as a manager. And when they needed me in practice, they would throw me in here and there. And we were about to play Duke my senior year on national TV. They were loaded with Bobby Hurley and Christian Laettner and all those guys. And we got done practicing, and I was in the scrimmage all day, but I was still the manager, and coach said, we're going to have an extra player on the bench tomorrow. And he threw me a jersey, and I was on the team for the rest of the year. So it was a chill bump moment that to this day, it's just changed my life and my outlook on life and what's possible with a little bit of, a lot of hard work, a little bit of luck, and a little bit of God's grace, and things can happen. But, it's at the end of the day, it's all about the hard work and the attitude. And so it's changed my life forever. But that's my story. It's kind of like the Rudy of NC State basketball.
Yeah. Was that Les Robinson did that?
Yes, sir, it was.
Good
yes,
guy.
Sir.
He's a good man.
Oh, he's the best. He is one of the most genuine human beings you'll ever meet. And I've never in my years of being with him, and then since then, I've never heard one person I've ever run into say anything less than he is an amazing man. He's just a good man.
All these stories we've talked about are real, and they're meaningful. The problem I have with the NIL is we lose some of this when it's all about the money, and you make a decision based on what a school can give me. These stories sometimes get lost in that, and so I don't know if to transfer at LSU, go to Oregon State for $50,000 when LSU wouldn't pay him anything. It's a different time now. But that's why I like these stories. I like something that's real, as opposed to I'm going to go to this school, not because of the experience I can have. It's how much they can give me. And I think fundamentally, to me, there's something not quite right about that.
That's what and I agree with you 100%, Coach. Like that was.
Hold that thought. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And Coach, I mean, if you got to go, I understand. And we love to do these roundtable discussions when we can, but you can't get it better than from coaches and players who've lived it. We'll be right back with Sidelines. Hey, back with Coach John Brady and Tommy Kane over in Atlanta. And Tommy, you were making some great points before the break, and so was Coach. So let's keep this going. We get this.
Yeah, I mean, Coach, I think, to me, I'm old school, right? But college sports was just great because it was so great because it was young men right out of high school that there was no money involved. There was no like contract, going from contracts to get your name, image, likeness. There was no transfers, all that stuff. And college sports, as I was growing up, was awesome. And we've talked about this before, Rob. But what made it so great is that you could watch a player come in as a freshman. You were excited because he was a freshman on your team. You watched him develop into a sophomore that was pretty good, a junior that maybe could make the NBA someday, and then like hopefully like the Tim Duncans of the world stay all 4 years and just have a phenomenal, Hall of Fame career in college. That is just, to me, is just gone now. That innocence and purity of college sports is out the window with name, image, likeness, and especially with the transfer portal and guys just look. I know there's circumstances, right, where kids have to transfer because there's a family illness or there's something going on with their family that they might need to take care of. And that's all well and good, but they should be able to have a procedure where they can still go and do that or whatever. But if you want to transfer just because you're not playing enough, go back to the old rule. Sure, you can transfer, but you got to sit out a year. Or there's got to be some penalty to it. That's just my take on it. If a coach transfers and you go to a school, like Ben was saying, go to school to play for him because you want to go play for Coach John Brady, and Coach Brady moves on to go to a next step in his career, then yes, you should be allowed to transfer as a kid too, and follow and do whatever you want because you committed to the coach and the university. The coach leaves, you should be able to go. But just to go and pick up and say, I want to go play somewhere else, I'm not playing enough, or I don't like, I just think it's wrong, and I think it's ruining college sports. That's just my take on it. We'll see how it all fleshes out in the next decade or so, but I think it's ruining. What I loved about college sports, which is what Coach was just saying, is the stories of the kids who come in as freshmen, develop. My best friend, you guys remember his name, Tom Gugliotta, played for NC State, was a phenomenal NBA player. He came into school at NC State as a 6'6", like 175-pound kid that Coach Valvano brought into his school because he used to coach with his dad up in Long Island. And Googs turned around, worked his butt off in the weight room, played all 4 years of his college, and was the 6th pick overall in the NBA draft. And it was just that's the stories we loved about college sports that made us big fans. And those stories, I think, are just kind of going by the wayside. So, yeah.
I agree. I agree with that whole scenario and those points. And I just don't know, the NIL, the question with me sometimes is it sustainable?
Right.
Can you continue to do this kind of thing and it's sustainable? Is a alumni guy that's given whatever he's given $1 million or so a year to NIL, can that be sustainable over the course of years? I don't know, but it does lose all of that to me. And I used to we used to build a team with a freshman recruiting class and watch them grow and watch them develop.
Right.
Now you don't, the high school freshmen, they're down the list. You may sign 1 or 2, but then you're going to go into Portland and get 5 or 6 and LSU right now. Okay. When Will Wade left here, every player left except 2 or 3. They went into Portland and got 10 new players. Well, we're on a 9 or 10 game losing streak. I'm sure there's going to be another 8 or 9 leave this team, or the ones they're not going to bring back. And you're going to sign another 8 or 9 players, and it gets to be a vicious cycle. And you better hit in the portal, or you're stuck in a circle that you can't get out of. And so
that's right.
That portal can be a good thing, or it can really cost you your job if you're not really careful with it.
Well, that's the other thing too about the portal, Coach, if you ask me, is like, you're also getting in 22, 23, 24, sometimes guys that are in their 6th year of playing college basketball. These are, trying to play, and then you got a couple of freshmen that are 18, 19 years old. That's a big difference physically, maturity, everything else. So your transfer portal, you're bringing in all these guys that are all older, mixed up in all different things, and you're trying as a coach to gel them together. And guess what? You probably got 1 year with those guys, like Coach was just saying, and they're all going to go out or they're going to be done playing. So like NC State right now has got, I think, 5 of their top 7 players this is their final year. They're all transfer portal guys, so they're all going to be gone. That means, so we're 22 in the country right now. Next year, we're probably not going to be ranked, and we're going to be right back at the bottom of the barrel. And you got to reload again. It's just crazy. And Rob, you and I have talked about this. I love college basketball. I had to look up the roster and read it 3 or 4 times at the beginning of the year to see who was even on my NC State basketball team that I love dearly. Because I didn't know where they came from.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like that. It's going to be like that almost every year. Almost every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Coach, and this is really, you think about what he just talked about with NC State, and you've seen the ESPN 30 for 30s with Thurl Bailey and Derek Wittenberg and Terry Gannon, who was on that team. When those guys get together for those 10, 20, and 30, now coming up on the 40th anniversary of that national championship in 1983 in Albuquerque, you can't make that up unless you've lived and traveled that path, how close those guys are. Now, nothing, in my opinion, from people I know who have been in combat, makes you closer. My brother-in-law, Kurt, 25 years in the Marine Corps. I mean, you go in his man cave up in Clarksville, Tennessee, which is covered, I might add, in orange and white of Tennessee. The only thing he got from his 25 years in the Marine Corps, he got it's a statue of a bayonet and on top of it is his Marine helmet, his Kevlar. I said, did they give that to you for 25 years of service in Fallujah and Somalia and everywhere in between? He said, nope. I go, well, how'd you get it? He goes, I just took it. She got to do that. But that, you talk about being close with his guys. Wow. But what you go through and Coach and Tommy and anything that I've ever done that was worth a damn, I look back and I thank God I had coaches and teachers and parents like I do. My mother used to make me walk the stairs to the 8th floor at Haley Center at Auburn's campus instead of taking the elevator, because she said, let me tell you something, Junior. You can't punch a button and get to the top. Climb those stairs, because every time you're going up and down, you're going to remember what it took to graduate and get to the top. Wow. You can't make that stuff up. And Coach, that's why you're not old school. Tommy, you're not old school. You're smart. You're way ahead of the curve. And I think the free market's going to fix this. I can't imagine what you're dealing with at LSU versus when you brought in Glenn Davis in that freshman class. What was he like as a freshman? Did he ever get frustrated? I mean,
yeah, he did. So did I. But he wasn't going anywhere, until he got good enough to get drafted. But that was a 3-year relationship. And he, Glenn was special because he grew up in Baton Rouge. He went to high school with my 2 daughters. He was older than them, but Glenn grew up on the campus. Tyrus Thomas from Baton Rouge. Brandon Bass was from Baton Rouge. Tasman Mitchell from Denham Springs, and Daryl Mitchell from St. Martinville. I was blessed. Stromile Swift from Shreveport, Louisiana. I mean, we had a lot of local players come through the state when I was there, and we were able to benefit from that. But those guys came and stayed, and this transfer thing, I've always thought guys transfer for a reason. If I've never seen a leading scorer of a team transfer somewhere else unless something just tragic happened to make him want to go. But we've got a transfer from NC State. Cam Hayes is on our team here at LSU, right? And he's a good player, but he hasn't performed, I don't think, like they thought he would. But that's that transfer portal. And how do you really evaluate a player in the transfer portal? You look at him on tape. You call around and people say things about him that you trust, possibly. But if I never signed a player in my coaching career that I didn't see play. I wasn't going to put that on an assistant coach. I was going to eyeball this young man, watch him in warm-ups, watch how he interacted with his teammates, watch how he interacted with the coach when the coach challenged him at a timeout. I wanted to see it for myself. I like my assistants, had some good ones, really good ones. But at the end of the day, the responsibility for those collection of players is going to fall on the head coach. So I wanted to see him play. And that was just my approach. And I don't know, this, and then when you start paying players, it dwarfs all the good stuff that it should be about. And I think it's just not quite right.
Well, let me ask you this too, Coach. I got a question for you. When you talk about Big Baby Davis and him coming in and, his freshman year having, of course, there's the struggles or whatever. Don't you think, like, if a player comes in that situation, and let's say he did transfer, and he's got to go learn a whole new system and get comfortable, whatever, and then maybe he plays a year or two there and he transfers there. I am going to go on record as saying I don't think he probably makes the pros if he has to go through stuff like that and not play with the same system, build up his, and you as a coach and your coaching staff working with him year after year after year to get him to a place where he is, a great player and able to go support, play in the NBA and supply and support his family and everything else. But I feel like a lot of players thinking this transfer portal, I bet they're kind of hurting themselves in the long run more than they think they are. I mean, I think that's got to be a possibility because I can't imagine learning and going from school to school to school and trying to become great. I think it would be so much harder than just sticking it out at one school.
I agree with that. I think, each individual player is different. And Glenn, his decision to come to LSU was good for him because he wouldn't have made it, I don't think, if he'd have left town, if he'd have went away somewhere because of circumstances within his family and all those kinds of things. He needed that local support, and he got it. But that was the beauty to me about coaching is, and Glenn started from day one, and he played every minute, every game he was there. That unless he got in foul trouble or something like that, but. I think the beauty of coaching at the collegiate level when I was there was signing freshmen and developing them and working with them to get them where they wanted to go. We didn't have the distractions of every year him walking in and saying, Coach, I need more NIL money or I'm going to transfer. All those sort of pressures that distract from the relationships. That's why I can't leap forward with all of this. I know it's a different time. People can point, well, you don't want a young man to benefit from. Yes, I do, but not giving it to him before he's earned it. That's the issue I have. Yeah.
I mean, we all know lessons we learned as a kid. You didn't get your allowance until you did the work. You think if they paid the workers on Monday, they'd be out on the job site Friday. It doesn't work that way. And that's why when I talk about the free market, I go back in the late 90s. You had Stewart, in the, $7.95 trades. Who needs a financial advisor? And then we had March of 2000. Stock market imploded. NASDAQ went from over 5,000 to 1,100. It was like, stepping on a mine, click, don't move. Which one of these .com stocks with 1,500 PE ratio is going to blow you up today? That's why this stuff's going to work out, because exactly what Coach is saying, these players, they probably wouldn't have made it if they hadn't had that local support. And Tommy, you impart your wisdom on these young kids when you talk to them. And Coach, that's why when you're on the broadcast with LSU, I bet you get a chance to talk to these players. And Tommy, you do, in working with Fox Sports and ACC Network. I think we're going to have a few of these crash and burns, like that alleged $13.6 million deal at Florida, to wake people up and say, hey, wait a minute. I'm giving more money to my university's collective for NIL than I send to my own kids. That's nuts.
Yeah. It's kind of upside down, right? It's like being upside down on a mortgage right now. You kind of, it's all, you just, I think that there's, I think it's just going down a path and it's just going to get, look at the NBA and like the salaries and what those guys are making, like from what went from, the Jordan years and guys signing contracts for $30-40 million for like, a couple years. Now guys are making $30-40 million a year. So at that, I mean, the NBA, the contracts you get, this is what I'm worth, this is what I'm worth, this is what I'm worth, and it's going right through the roof. And you're going to see the same thing with the NIL deals. You're going to say, well, this guy just got $100,000 from a car dealership, and I'm playing more minutes than him or whatever, so I need to get $200,000. Eventually, the bubble's going to burst. I don't think the money's there, that the support there is all that to sustain that. Like Coach said, I don't think it's sustainable the way it is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Hey, real quick before we're about out of time, and I appreciate you both for staying on long, but you can't, when you get on a roll like this again, if this is just incredible stuff. And most often, folks, we're going to see the face of Christ in the least among us and go out and give with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Don't give to get, as my friend Jay Evers down in Birmingham says, give to give. out of the goodness of your heart. And we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. And the free market, Coach, your closing comments here with 2 minutes left as you get ready for the next LSU basketball game. If you talk to your head coach, which you get a chance to do too, and the players, what are they saying right now? Because I know you do a lot of listening. You're a very good listener and a very good, you have great answers.
Well, honestly, I don't get that deep in this situation. Being a former coach at LSU, Matt McMahon, he's in charge of that. And I told Will Wade and I told Matt, I'm here in a support role for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any message you want, let me know. I'll help you with the message. And if I don't offer anything and I don't question anything. If he wants to ask me something, I'll tell him the truth on what I think. And Matt has asked me a couple of things during this 9-game losing streak, what I think. And I've told him, but I'm really careful not to use my exposition as the coach. I don't want to come across as I'm second guessing anyone.
Right.
You know, I'm glad I'm doing this. LSU changed my life. Coached there 11 years like I did. And so I want to give something back to the university, support the coach in whatever way I can. So NIL and those sort of things, I'm not really into that. And I don't really want to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Coach, I tell you that and Dale Browne is there. Dale, that's one of my favorite coaches of all time. That guy could get me excited to walk to the gallows, man. I mean, but you love your coaches who were tough on you because deep down they love you and they know if they're not tough on you, you're not going to have what it takes to make it once you leave the nest, once you leave college, once you leave home. And so thank you. This is unbelievable segment. And Tommy, your story, it's worthy of a book, movie. But Coach, you understand if you got a team full of Tommy Kanes that want it that bad, they'll never quit. And that's all we ask for. Hey, great show, everybody. Have a great day. We will be back tomorrow. Until then, we are out of here.
Good to meet you, John.
Nice seeing you, Tommy. All right.